العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول النبي الكريم أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كل نفس ذائقة الموت وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة فمن زحزح عن النار وادخل الجنة فقد فاز وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. First and foremost, all praises be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the heavens and the earth. It is He in whose hands our lives exist. When He decides that our time is up, our time is up. It is in His hands that everything, the life of not just all living creatures, but the entire universe is in His hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, everybody, all of us, every single living creature, kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, they are going to taste death. And on the day of judgment will be the day of reckoning when all matters will be settled. The one who is saved from the fire, it is like we are all slipping down through a valley and reaching that fire pit. And it is the one who Allah saves, decides to protect him, and he is saved. It's not like out of his own that he can save himself. Yes, you strive and you work hard, but at the end of the day, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one who's saved, he's the winner. The reality is, this world is a deceptive place. It gives you that deception that you live here forever. The wealth that we get and collect in this world will be forever, but it's not true. And before I remind myself further, we have gathered here because obviously a man who in his own right was a huge stature of the stature of this man is exemplary, a great scholar, a great mentor, a great teacher, a great guide has left this world. And I just want to give you a brief outline of this man, his simple upbringings, and the heights he reached as a reminder for ourselves, and that we seek, that we get inspiration. Maulana Sheikh Yusuf Islahi, my father-in-law, he was born somewhere in the foothills of the Hindu Kush mountains of current-day border of Afghanistan and Pakistan, in a place that we know as Attak, close to the city of Peshawar. And those of you who are familiar with the area, and some of you may actually be from the area, know how rugged the terrain is. People are born tough. I remember walking the foothills of the Himalayas, where he resided in the city of Rampur, and further up are the foothills. And when I went my honeymoon, I realized I couldn't climb up and down. And all the kids there had no problems going up and down the hills. It was like climbing up a 10 flight of stairs up and 10 flight of stairs down just to get a bucket of water. So you are made tough. And life there is tough. And in this place, he is born. And sadly so, he gets separated from his mother at a very young age, at the age of 4 or 5. His father takes him down further south, which in British India was all the same. He came to a place called Bareilly, India, where he starts learning the Quran. At the age of 11, he had memorized the Quran by heart. And he could not leave the Taraweeh for people because he was not of that age. So he used to recite at home in Nawafil the Quran because he couldn't recite until he reached the age of 18. He states that he continued his Islamic studies in a place called Mazahir al-Ulum in Saharanpur district. And again, as a young man, he was enjoying life, and he was studying in the madrasa because his father kind of guided him towards. And by the way, his father, in his own right, was a scholar, a Sheikh al-Hadith. He had by hearted the books of Hadith, including, of course, the Quran as well. And he was guiding his son, our Sheikh Maulana Yusuf Islahi. But he was a young boy. And he said, I wasn't interested much, and life went by. And there was a man, he says in his own words, he was a tailor, a man of lowly origins. And whenever he would see this young boy, he would give him a book. And he would take that book and he would take that book and keep it in his house, and later on, when he would pass by again, the tailor would say, hey, where's that book? And he would return it unread. And this happened again and again and again, until finally there was a book, and he, for some reason, sat down, and then he started to read. And incidentally, he says that this was the book Taziati that was written by Maulana. And as he started to read, the words inspired him. And it inspired him so much that at night he started to read loud, as if to an audience. And he says there was no audience, the audience was my own self, but I started to read loudly, being impressed by the arguments that he had placed in the book. And he also excelled in the school. And he says, this I heard from his own son when he was telling, that there was a subject, in Urdu we call it mantiq, in English we call it logic. Logic was a subject. And in those days, this is British India, when you score, the maximum marks you could score was 25. And if you got 20 or 21, that is the limit. They would never give you a 25 out of 25 because that is considered perfect, and no man is perfect, so they would always get less. And he says, when my papers were scored, my teacher gave me 26 out of 25. That was how good he was. But as he started to read other books, and his way of thinking differed from the school people decided that he is not of our thinking, so you need to get out of the school. And they ejected him out of the school. And without any words, without fighting back, he went now to a place called Azamgarh in UP, and there in Madrasatul Islahi, he studied and continued his studies, and of course he graduated with distinction. And incidentally, we have Dr. Arif here with us, and his father-in-law, I did not know, was a class fellow of Sheikh Maulana Yusuf Islahi in the same place, in Azamgarh, where he is also from. And here he graduated with distinction, and as they call it, Sanad Fazilat, he was a class in the entire school. He was number one, and he got all those degrees. And he said, I took them. Now he is number one. Wherever he goes, he can get a job. He is that good. He said, I took all those certificates and I tore it up and threw it. And because I did not want to work, that idea of working for someone was something that he never wanted to do. And he decided to dedicate his entire life for the cause of Islam. Easy for us to tell, but for us to tear away our certificates and throw it away, saying I will never ever work for someone. In other words, be a slave to someone. This is British India. Be a slave to someone was something very hard to do. Ask ourselves if we can. And he went on to study the Quran deeply. And he states that those were the days when the Nizam of Hyderabad, this was the state of Hyderabad, had translated books into Urdu, all classical books or books in English, all the literary masterpieces were all translated in Urdu, and here was a library full of these books. And he says, the entire library I scanned and I read those books. And now, armed with this knowledge, he started to write. And one of the first books that he had written was Adab-e-Zindagi, which we know as Etiquettes of Life in Islam, a book that is very, very popular, especially in the Indian subcontinent and also in the United States. So as he continued to write, he was more impressed with Maulana Mauludi, and he also had, he said, the opportunity to meet him. And he says in his own words that I had read the Quran and so much knowledge I had gained, and I felt that I know a lot. And then I went and met Maulana Mauludi, and when I met him, I told him, look, you have written this book. He pointed and said, I don't agree with what you have written. You need to change some of these things. And he says, I said that with a kind of pride that I knew a lot, until when he answered back. And the answers that Maulana Mauludi gave me back humbled me, making me realize that I'm sitting in front of a man with a great vision and more understanding. He went on to write books and books and books, and some of them just to mention, Etiquettes of Life in Islam, Everyday Fiqh, Qurani Talimat, Guldasta Hadith. These are all translated in English, and more than 100 books he has written. And just the last 2 years, when the COVID hit and he was home, he has already written so much. He doesn't waste time. He has written so much that his son was telling me that he needs to sift through and see which ones, how much more can be published. In 1970s, he started the publication called Zikra. And it was something that was like a monthly publication, a periodical, that to this day continues. He used to teach in 2 schools. One was a school for the boys. Now again, this is the time when the Muslim world was kind of away. They shirked British education because there was that animosity. And it is those days when Sir Syed Ahmad Khan formed the Aligarh Muslim University. There was an awakening within the Muslim world. And here there were 2 schools that were started, one for the boys in Rampur, UP, and then there was another for the girls, which went on to become Jamiat al-Salihat. It was started by Maulana Abu Salim Abdul Hayy, and then it went on to Tawassul Hussain, who happens to be the father of Muzammil Siddiqui, a scholar who currently resides in California, and he also is related to me through my wife. Then it was passed to Maulana Sheikh Yusuf Islahi, and under his guidance, it has blossomed into a university in itself. He has traveled all over the world. We all know him. I'm going to stop here to say that this is something, a real epic journey that he has done. And there are many things that I've learned. One of the things that I would say that he kind of embodied is to remind ourselves that this dunya is short. And what is destined for us, the risk that is being written for us, is written. And no matter what, you are going to get it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, this is a hadith from Hadrat Umar, he has narrated, that if you were to rely on Allah as He should be relied on, He would provide for you as He provides for the birds. They go out early in the morning hungry and return in the evening full. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a soul will not die until it gets all of the provisions that have been apportioned for it. Every morsel to the last morsel, until you get it, you're not going to die. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Imran, where Allah says, وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تَمُوتَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. Nobody will die until Allah decides. Kitabun Ajra, it's already been written. وَمَنْ يُرِدْ ثَوَابَ الدُّنْيَا نُؤْتِهِ مِنْهَا. You know, we all have passions. We all have ideas. And we have a vision in our life. I want to be a doctor. a scientist. I want to make so much money. I want to have so many houses. I need to do this. I need to do that. We all have ideas. And Allah says, whatever you want, what you have envisioned for yourself, you want this dunya, this world, the riches, we will give it to you. وَمَنْ يُرِيدِ الْآخِرَةَ نُؤْتِهِ مِنْهَا. You want the akhirah, then we will give it to you as well. My dear brothers, when you make dua, you ask both for the dunya and the akhirah. But remember, this dunya is a reminder for myself and for all of us. This dunya is very, 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 very short. Just I keep reminding myself, we are living here and we all know this as a fact, that 100 years ago we did not exist on the face of this earth. And I'll tell you with reasonable confidence that 100 years from now, none of us here will probably be living. It's a very, very short life. And just compare that to this earth. This earth has existed for 4,000 million years. It's something that's hard, mind-boggling to understand. For 4,000 million years, 4 billion years, this earth is that old. What we live is a very, very short time. And compared to that, the akhirah is endless. So, my dear brothers, let us plan for the akhirah. I don't want to take too much of our time, but this is, again, some time to sit and ponder and ask ourselves, what are we doing with our lives? What have we stored for the akhirah? What can I do? All these lives, all this time we have lived, we have done, but there is time left. The fact that we are living, the fact that we are breathing means that Allah has given a lease on our lives. Allah has given some time for us to think. Allah has given us wealth that we can spend. Allah has given us strength that can be used. Let us plan for the akhirah. Let us plan for that time that will come for all of us. And when that time comes, no matter who he is, he could be a prophet, he could be a scholar, he could be an ordinary man like you and me. When that time comes, that time comes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَوْلَا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ. When life comes and is coming at the edge and ready to come out. My dear brothers, the Maulana of Sheikh, I left from here. I'm only saying this not to boast, but to just remind ourselves. I left and went all the way to India saying, this is my expertise. For 20 years, I have really treated people who have difficulty breathing. He was suffering from pneumonia. I said, I know the medications that can be given. Let me go. And I did. And I said, let me get him to the best of places where we can get him the best of treatment. I moved him to one of the best hospitals in India. We did what we could, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command prevails. And these ayah remind myself, when the time comes that you're ready to leave, you can do whatever you want. And Allah puts a challenge. If you have the power, try to turn back. You can't. Allah's power prevails. Yes, we need to try. We need to strive. But at the end of the day, it is Allah who decides who has to go and who stays. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'll close with this. فَأَمَّا إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ. And when that time comes, and if that person is from those who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the person is leaving, he starts to smell the sweet smell of Jannah. فَرَوْحٌ وَرَيْحَانٌ وَجَنَّةٌ نَعِيمٌ. He's already introduced to what he is going to get. That introduction itself is a source of peace. That will be a time, my dear brothers, we will be leaving this earth. That person is scared. He doesn't know, because on one side, everything is gone. He is walking into a darkness, an unknown place where he doesn't know what's going to happen. You can imagine the kind of state that a person will be in. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Those who say, Allah is my Lord, and I'm going to stand by it.
تتنزل عليهم الملائكة. The malaika will descend on him. Allah takhafu wa la tahzanu. They'll say, don't worry, we're going to be with you. There's nothing wrong with you, nothing bad going to happen to you. And we are your friends. We were your friends in this dunya, we are your friends even now. And they will give them the bashara, the promise that Allah has made for them, the Jannah. نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون. As opposed to that, the opposite, when a person has committed wrong. When a person has taken this dunya as the place that he thinks he will live, and that is the end, the angels come down. As in Surah Al-An'am, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذِ الظَّالِمُونَ فِي غَمَرَاتِ الْمَوْتِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ بَاسِطُو أَيْدِيهِمْ. The angels come down. They put their hands to pull that soul out. أَخْرِجُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. We need to get your life out. Come on, come out. And that is a hard thing. Scholars describe it's like how you rip meat from a bone. The person's soul is ripped out. Because you didn't care. You didn't care. You rejected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. You refused to accept Allah as your Lord. Come, show us who your helpers were, who your gods were that will protect you today. I'll go on, but this is a kind of stop. It's not to bore you, but to remind myself and all of us that that time will come, whether we like it or not. Anybody, whether you accept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, or you don't accept, death is a reality. And we need to prepare. Pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He protects us from all calamities. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather all of us in Jannah, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive Maulana Sheikh Yusuf Islahi for all the contributions that he has done. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a high place in Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill his grave with nur. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make his questioning and accounting right. Inshallah, our Sheikh will make dua and then we will end this session. And inshallah, we have refreshments after your sunnah. Jazakallah.
Before we start the dua, the ulama say you can read Quran by intention and you can just send to anyone he died. It is like the gift. And the ulama takes this, Imam Sheikh said this, and all the story the three people go cave, they mention all good Amal Salihah. I just have the idea. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam he says when you read the Surah Al-Ikhlas, it's one time, that's equal 1/3 of the Quran. We read inshallah Surah Al-Ikhlas 3 times, that's equal in the whole Quran, and inshallah we'll send this to Maulana Yusuf. We'll read first, and after that inshallah make dua. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم اغفر له وارحمه اللهم عافه واعف عنه اللهم اكرم نزله ووسع مدخله واغسله من خطاياه بالماء والثلج والبرد اللهم اغسله من خطاياه بالماء والثلج والبرد اللهم نقه من الذنوب والخطايا كما ينقى الثوب الابيض من الناس اللهم انك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنه اللهم انك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنه اللهم اجعل قبره روضه من رياض الجنه اللهم اجعل وله روضة من رياض الجنة. اللهم شفع فيه مرضه يا رب العالمين. اللهم بلغه منازل الشهداء. اللهم بلغه منازل الشهداء. اللهم اكتب كتابه في عليين واحشره مع الأبرار المقربين. اللهم احشره مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. اللهم شفع فيه علمه النافع يا رب العالمين، وشفع فيه القرآن الكريم يا رب العالمين، وشفع فيه جميع فعل الخيرات يا رب العالمين. اللهم شفع فيه الدعوة إليك يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل قبره روضة من رياض الجنة. اللهم جاف الأرض عن جنبيه يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل أول ليلة له في قبره هي أسعد لياليه يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل أول ليلة في قبره هي أسعد لياليه يا رب العالمين. اللهم أبدله دارا خيرا من داره، وأهلا خيرا من أهله. اللهم كن له أنيسا يا رب العالمين. اللهم كن له أنيسا يا رب العالمين. اللهم كن له أنيسا يا رب العالمين. اللهم إن كان محسنا فزد في إحسانه، وإن كان مسيئا فتجاوز بفضلك وعفوك وغفرانك عن سيئاته. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان، ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. اللهم لا تحرمنا أجرك ولا تفتنا بعده، واغفر لنا وله ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات، إنك يا ربنا سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم